And welcome back to me channel, or if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is me channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And yeah, we are going to, I don't know, I just decided I would do a little bit of my favorite dystopic, post-apocalyptic movies. And we are going to start with The Domestics. Now, I saw a review recently by Mr. Nick Cooling from the Movie Ranker, who kind of reminded me how much I love this movie and that it doesn't get enough love, so we're fixing to smooch all over it, yeah? So this is The Domestics. Juicy little Blu-ray. Now, The Domestics was released in 2018. It was directed by Mark P. Nelson. That would be Mike P. Nelson. And it was written by Mike P. Nelson. It stars Kate Bosworth, Tyler Hoechlin, and Sonoya Mizuno. I'm pretty sure she plays Betsy. So, this movie opens with a narrated introduction in which you see a bunch of high school teenagers exiting their school. They look all about, 17, 16, 17. They're walking out into the parking lot when they hear a noise. They look up in the sky and they see these big giant chemtrail bomber planes coming over, releasing this black smoke, and they see all these missiles. Now, for a split second, I thought it was like a nuclear attack because it looked very similar to the scene in The Day After. So, that's what I thought for a second or two. Then, but you're listening to the narrator tell you that the government decided to release the black poison. And it zooms in on this one boy, and as he's looking up at it, his nose begins to bleed, and you are then informed that a very small percentage of the population was immune to this black poison, and you then begin to hear a bunch of news reports from sort of like I would say Kathy Bates's character in The Stand. She's like, the last bastion of freedom, reporting on all of this horrible stuff that's happening. So you hear this guy, and he calls survivors domestics, for all of you domestics who are not part of the gangs. Now this country is ran by a variety of anarchic street gangs such as the Sheets, the Gamblers, the Cherries, also known as Man-Haters. There's a bunch of, I don't know, there's probably like, the movie shows you about 6 or 7 of them, gangs. This group of gangs. And so we are introduced to Nina and Mark. Now, Nina and Mark is they appear to be a couple at first, and they are, but, you quickly learn that they are right at the end of a divorce. So they were still together when this happened, but they were not together when this happened. Yet here they are still together because they have no choice now. So that sets up a little dynamic that's kind of interesting. Thankfully, they keep it a very basic subplot, and they don't really hone in too much on it. So you're introduced to them. We see Mark mapping out a route to Milwaukee, and we see her talking on the phone, and it turns out that they are going to go. They're going to go out there, and a neighbor tries to talk them out of it. But they are going to go because she has lost contact with her mother on the CB radio. So I guess since all this occurred, she had been keeping in touch with her parents through the CB. And now she had not heard from them in 2.5 weeks or so. So they are actually going to try to make it to Milwaukee, to where her parents are, to their neighborhood. So Nina, you see Nina on the CB telling her mom that she's on the way, and that her and Mark are going to, that her and Mark are trying to fix their marriage, but she doesn't think it can be. So obviously that kind of stuff is going on. We see that Mark also carries like a little custom-made book on the gangs. Like the gamblers wear animal heads, and the sheets all look like Casper the Ghost, Friendly Ghost. So yeah, we see, all of this kind of stuff. The Plowboys, that's another one of the gangs. So, through the radio reports you hear as, it's sort of like a football game, in that this radio host is sort of telling you who has the most territory, and, the gamblers' territory is expanding, and the Plowboys and so forth. So the couple get on the road and we end up seeing them, search for supplies going along their way. We see a couple on the road. I guess they look a little middle-aged, but they are being attacked by this gang, and it's three of them, and they are looking for what do you think they're looking for? People to victimize. And obviously, I guess the woman with them is too old to satisfy. So the man had actually seen Mark and Nina staying at, because, of course you're going to stay in abandoned houses along the way and try to make it to the next day where you can ride out. So he had seen them, but he's not a bad guy. But he does end up telling them where they had seen a couple, and they kill both of them anyway, pretty ugly. So that was a couple of kills. Now one of the guys can't make it. His motorbike won't start. So the other two go to that house to confront and get Mark and Nina. And Mark ends up killing both of them. Pretty cool. Now Nina is all kind of timid and scary and overly girl-like during the first part of this movie. But he does end up killing them, the two, and they continue on their way. They stop at a grocery store where they think they're being attacked again, but it turns out to be a nice guy. It's this guy named Nathan, whom I remember personally from Gladiator. Spartacus, the Showtime show Spartacus. He was the black guy, the tall black trainer in Gladiator, the Gladiator series. But his name is Nathan, his son, and they rescue them from a gang in there and invite them home for a normal dinner, like we're going to have a normal dinner. And he's really pretty insistent, and I do feel kind of like something's going on, but, he's got his little kid with him and everything seems fine. So they end up going, him and his son Stephen take them to their house where his wife Teresa, I don't know what the little girl's name was, but they end up having this really nice normal dinner. They eat like these kind of steak patties, and beans and rice. So they have this normal dinner. He wants to play like Uno or something like that. Basically, you can tell what they're doing is they want to have a moment of normalcy by having dinner with another couple and playing some party games. So, they're doing that, and you really like Nathan at this point, because you're like, there's got to be good people left. So after the dinner, Mark's in there helping him clean the dishes and all. And he wants to know if he can trade some canned goods or something for some meat, because this was real meat, And so Nathan is like, well, sure, I can give you some. You don't have to trade me with anything. I'm a nice guy. I'll give you some if you can tell me what kind of meat it is. So he's like, beef, and he's like, oh, please, when is the last time you seen a cow? And he's like, okay, venison. And he's like, look, man, when is the last time you seen a cow, venison, deer, anything? When have you seen any of that? So it's like, oh, well, that's true. Well, what? And that's when you're like, oh, shit. So about the same time that Mark realizes it, you realize it as well. And that is they just ate somebody, of course. So you're like, he starts throwing up. Mark starts throwing up. And he starts telling him, like, if you tell Nina what we just did, I'll kill you. And then Nathan says, no, actually. Au contraire, guest of mine. Actually, the way this is going to go is you're going to fucking sit down and have some party games with us, and we're going to have a normal evening, or I'm going to string both of you up and we'll feed you to the next motherfuckers. Well, a little big for your britches in somebody else's house there, Mark. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you just found out you ate somebody. It's probably not the time to act like a badass in front of the motherfucker that just fed you somebody. So, I did think that was kind of interesting that he gets all butch in front of some big motherfucker that just fed him somebody. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, you let your emotions get away with you there. Because I'd have just went like, oh, that's very tasty. I've got an appointment to get to. We have got to go. No, you're going to sit and play party games. Sure. We sure will. Till, of course, we get the moment to get the fuck away from you. But, am I going to jump his ass? No, I'm just not going to eat no more dinner with him. So, he was told that it was human. And he's pretty like, you think something's fixing to happen, but then the gang guy from that house where he had killed them two guys, well, he didn't quite finish one of them off, and he's back kind of pissed about the eye that he lost. So a big fight happens because, the guy's like, Nathan is like, what do you want? What are you even here for? What do you want? And the guy's like, I want them to. Well, you can have them. Just leave my family alone. Of course, Stephen's sneaking up behind him and cuts the guy's Achilles tendon, whatever that is. You know what I mean. And a big fight ensues. Now, his little daughter and Teresa, his wife, they both get killed during this fight. And Nina and Mark take off running, but not in their vehicle. They grab that guy's vehicle and they take off. So they manage to escape, and as they're escaping, they run right into sniper territory, which is the gangs, the gamblers. And Nina gets shot through the shoulder. Nathan calls the plowman because he's got like a peace treaty sort of with the local gang, which is the Plowboys. So he calls them and sends them after them. Now, right earlier, before they went to dinner, we got introduced to Betsy, who is probably... I'm having a thought moment. I think Betsy is probably my favorite character in this movie. She only says 2 words in the whole movie. But she's just my favorite. I don't know. She's the one I thought about the most. Like, who are you? What are you doing? What's up? So I think she was the most interesting character in this movie was Betsy. We had seen her earlier in town, where the Plowboys faced off with Nathan, and it was a slave they had captured. They had captured Betsy and was going to enslave her in their brothel sex trafficking thing. So she had gotten loose and had killed them all except for Jim. She let all the other slave girls go, and she got Jim and she put him in the trunk, the boot of the car, and she's heading out. So not only, Nathan wasn't able to send the plowboys after them because she had killed almost all of them and that were in the building at the time. So she's after them too. And you're kind of trying to figure out, well, what is she doing? What is she up to? So she's following. Mark finds Nina. Nina wakes up at this new place that they're hiding at, and Mark is like looking around the local homes while she wakes up, gets drunk, and dances around to a really cool song. And we see Betsy outside, like, watching her. So I'm starting to go, okay, Betsy was part of the Cherries gang. So is she in love with Nina? That's kind of what the feeling that I got. But yet she didn't hurt Mark, and she didn't seem to be a threat to them. But you're wondering, what's up with this bitch? She doesn't seem to want to hurt them. She seems to just be following them and watching them. So at this house close by, Mark runs across Nathan and Stephen tied up on a bed in a bedroom, and we get introduced to Willie, this really weird guy named Willie, and he likes to see people fight his slave. It's like a retarded guy. Do you remember in Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome, the big mentally challenged guy that the little midget rode on his shoulders, Master Blaster? Master Blaster runs Bar Town. Well, this Big Bill is what he's called. He's like that. He's like that guy. He's this big giant double cheeseburger, but ain't got a lick of sense. Right? So Willie's like, you're going to fight my little, whatever he was to him. I don't know. I think Willie seemed a little gay. Or a lot gay, actually. I don't know what was going on, to tell you the truth. But he's got this Big Bill thing. And y'all are going to fight for my pleasure, or you're going to help me cut up Stephen and Nathan. That's the two show. I've got to have a show. And he's like going on about all of his movie trivia knowledge. He's like a cinema collector, and he's talking about A Clockwork Orange and things like that. So that was pretty interesting because he's obviously like a movie collector. And he likes to see a show. So these are the two choices of shows that you have. So Mark decides to fight Big Bill. And in this gigantic fight, he ends up fighting with Willie as well and ends up blowing Willie's brains out. Mark does. And Big Bill just stands there like, well, now he don't know what to do. He frees Stephen and Nathan, whom I guess forgive him the debt, because they were chasing him to kill him, and now he's like saved their lives. So they all part ways outside the house, which is pretty funny. Because, they've obviously, okay, we'll call it quits. Mark goes his way. They go their way. But before they do, you see Big Bill walking off down the street, and he turns around and waves, M-O-O-N man from The Stand, So he's like, bye. And, Stephen and Nathan are like, bye. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? So Like I said, Betsy had arrived and was watching Nina get drunk. And I jumped ahead of myself, so let me catch up. So, even though Betsy is still around, Mark comes back. They make out, I guess, their relationship, because of what they've been going through, is starting to improve. Nina had found a car in the garage of the place they were staying that she knew Mark would love because he's a car freak. So she takes him in there, and they kind of make up, and they're going to make out. And Betsy is watching all of this. When they are attacked, turns out the car that they're in has got the gambler gang sign on the back. And the house that they're in is obviously in their territory. So these gamblers come in, take them hostage, and take them to one of their main lairs. Now, at this lair, they take them upstairs. I mean, they're gamblers, right? So they take them to a special room where you've got all these people gambling on gladiator-style games. And they put Nina and Mark on the opposite side of a little table. And there is Pistol that is screwed to a glove. They put her hand in one, and then they screw it to the ouch. And they did the same with Mark, and then they're making bets on, because this Russian roulette is what it is. Put in the chamber, spin, and it's if you make it out of 6 through 6 rounds of doing this, you can go free. And this is the moment when she changed, she suddenly becomes like Ripley from Aliens. It's all of a sudden this meek, timid, kind of scary, overly girly person becomes very, very butch and very, very, oh, fuck that. No, I'll tell you what. You can put 1 bullet in mine, put 3 in his, and if we survive 2, we can leave. Up the stakes. Of course, she was just faking out, because as soon as, they got through 1 round, and then she managed to twist the gun and shoot the game master, and all hell breaks loose. They rip their hands off. So they've still got these guns screwed to their hands, like that Guns Akimo movie. So they've got this gun screwed to their hands, and they're rocking and rolling. And they manage to escape. And when they get out back, you see Betsy again, who is sniper popping a bunch of people around them that's chasing them. So here we have this Betsy person again, following and rescuing. She's like their guardian angel or something, which is very strange, because wherever they go, she goes, and she's they're only alive because of her. She has already saved them multiple times. They don't even know she exists, which is very interesting. They've never seen her, except for that. I don't even know if they've seen her back in town when Nathan and the Plowboys were talking and we first saw Betsy. Betsy saw her, but I don't think can't even remember if they even saw her. But they certainly don't know that this girl is following this, commando girl, is following them around and has now gotten them, out of 3 different death circumstances. So I think that's a really neat aspect to the movie. So Betsy helps them again, unseen. We see this big bitch, Wanda. She is pissed, who goes after them. And then we see that they do make it to her parents. So, because this gambler lair actually got them a lot closer, because there was only 43 miles from Milwaukee. So they made it to Milwaukee. we're introduced to this very nice neighborhood where we have a lot of normal domestics. They've blocked off the area with, car walls. They're leading pretty normal lives. She finds out that, sadly, her dad had died, and then her mom had topped herself because of it. So that's why she hadn't heard from them, is that he had died of a disease and then her mother killed herself. So the neighbors tell them how they've managed to keep this place safe with these booby traps, with the blockades and things like that. And it looks as though they're going to settle in. You're introduced to a bunch of the people, survivors. Now, Betsy, of course, she shows up as well, completely secretive, and she kind of moves into the neighborhood, into an abandoned house. And next thing we know, Wanda and the gamblers, right, they're coming. So they arrive, come into the neighborhood, and they're like, find these bitch. Those two, Mark and Nina. First we're going to find them, and then remind me to come back and burn this fucking place down, this suburban shit. She even says it. She's like, oh, the fucking suburbs. Remind me to come burn this place down. So she's a nasty bitch. Now, about that time, though, before they can really get started with anything, there's probably 12 of them. We hear more noise, and it's the fucking Plowboys. They're coming. So the gamblers are like, Plowboys, what the fuck are they doing here? I don't know, but it's like, oh, we're supposed to have a gang crossfire here. The Plowboys come in, but Nina remembers that trap that they had told her, which is mailboxes rigged with glycerin, and if somebody's trying to come, you come and you pull the tripwire, and when they hit the tripwire, the mailboxes are going to blow them up. And so she runs, she does that. It blows up the Plowboys. Then Betsy goes crazy because she's in a sniper position, and she's popping off a bunch of the gamblers. It's a really, really good fight scene, So, right about that time, though, that all this was happening, Nina had begun to suspect one of the neighbors as being a spy or something. She even goes to check him out right before the Plowboys, the gamblers, had come in, and she heard a radio in there. So she's and that's when the Plowboys showed up and the shit started. So she didn't really get to confront him. But she's going to do that later, in her mind. So Betsy, after Nina springs the trap, Mark got shot during this stuff. And that's when Betsy comes in, because Wanda, is coming into the house. So Betsy comes in, though, and right before that happens, she finds Mark injured on the couch. He's sitting on the couch. She had just saved his life. And she handed him back the wedding ring, Nina's wedding ring, from way back at the house where she got drunk at, before the gamblers got them. She handed that back, and she said, for her. And that's the only two words that she said in this entire movie, was for her. And you nearly jumped out the chair at that point, because that fat bitch Wanda come in and blew her fucking brains out with a shotgun. And I'm like, I wrote. She gave him the ring that she had forgotten, said for her, and then was shot by Wanda. And then I put in parentheses, I was pissed. I was fucking pissed. You understand? I'm like, what the fuck? That was my favorite character in the movie. Hello? You motherfuckers. So, blew half fucking Betsy's head off. That really pissed me off. I was like, you know what? I'll beat your ass if I ever see you, Mr. Director. But, So she was shot, and then Wanda, of course, like turns the other barrel to Mark and is going to blow his brains out when boom, Nina blows her ass away. And I'm like, well, at least there was justice. But what is justice? Betsy's dead. It don't fucking matter, does it? You bitch. However, I was very, very glad to see that fat bitch Wanda get her brains blown out. That was quite sweet. It was a little bit of sugar. It was like an M&M. You know, it's like, I need a snack. You know, just pop a milk dud in my mouth when I saw that bitch get killed. So, Nina's still not through, though. She's like, everything cool in here? You just sit your injured ass there. I gotta go do something. So she goes looking for that spy. She goes back to his house. And she goes in there, and somebody's already gotten to him. And he's like stabbed all up, gutted. And you're like, you know what? When Nina and Mark were at Nathan and Teresa's, and they were having dinner conversation, and they were talking about the different gangs, Stephen had told them about, you know, the Bobbies. And it's like, who are the Bobbies? And then he was like, well, we will, whenever you find a dead body, and it's like all kinds of stab wounds below the belly button, it's because it's a gang of children. So even the children have a gang in this movie, which they didn't really explore much of except for this right here. And they are called the Bobbies. And I'm like, wow. They should make a movie just about them. That would be cool. You know. So that little girl that Nina had met here in this neighborhood, the little girl Cynthia, you can see these little kid feet. You know, little kid Tootsie Prints walking away from that bloody motherfucker. And she goes out in the street, and there's Cynthia sitting on the Hot Wheels, you know, on her Hot Wheel. And you can see blood all over the bottom of her feet. And you're like, that little girl was a Bobby. You know what I mean? When this couple that took her in found her, she obviously used to be a Bobby. So you're like, I still say they should make a movie just about that, you know. So she goes to kill the spy, and he's already dead. Cynthia was in the Bobby gang. Nina gives Mark a fancy gun that she found over there in that house, you know, as a gift. It's a really pretty little decorative gun, and he in turn puts her ring back on. And she says, I love you, Marcus. And then they head out to find a safe home. Where you see it, I don't know where it was. It looked like I thought that it was like off the coast of Maine or something, since they're already in Milwaukee, right? So I thought it was like on the East Coast. But we then hear a radio report about, you know, from that guy, the radio guy. And he's like, oh, you domestics out there, better watch out. Rumor has it that there is a hot married domestic couple that is taking out gangsters all over the place as they are heading to Northern California. And I'm like, well, where was that fucking place that she had wrote the little home sign on the map? I'm like, what is that, Baja? California? Because it was like it was something off the coast. I'd have to get out a map and look. But, so you hear the radio reports about be on the lookout for this domestic couple because they are nobody to be fucked with, and they are killing gangsters left and right. And I'm like, that's cool. And the movie ends, and I gave it an 8 out of 10. I love this movie. This movie is really good. It's very underrated, very underknown, underappreciated, because it is underknown. If you haven't seen it, you really should. I really loved all the characters. Nina was alright. It was weird how she switched from damsel in distress to badass bitch. Almost too fast. But it's still cool. The character of Betsy was really cool because anytime you leave me with like thought process, like what was she doing? Why was she doing it? I really found her character very interesting, wondering why she was being the guardian angel of this couple, because she protected Mark too. So it wasn't that she was just, I think she was in love with Nina, but she wanted, so she wasn't protecting her because she wanted her. Well, she probably wanted her, but you know what I'm saying. She didn't want to take her from Mark. She just was in love with her. So what she wanted was her to be happy. That's why she gave him the ring back. So yeah, she may have been in love with her, but she wasn't trying to take her or get her. She was protecting her like an angel and wanted her to be happy. So that meant taking care of Mark as well. So she saved his life in that house and got her head blown off because of it. So, and it was somebody that neither one of them had never even seen. When she walked out and handed him that ring, that was his first time. Who are you? And yet this is a person who through the entire movie has been saving your ass. Time and time and time again. And then gets her brains blown out for it. So, I was pissed. But it was cool. So yeah, that was The Domestics, 2018. If you haven't seen it, you really should. It's a really cool post-apocalyptic dystopian. However, you want to say it? I would really like to know more about the Black Poison. But then again, there are a lot of these movies where you don't know. Like the Book of Eli. What happened? Can you tell me what happened? No, because they don't tell you. The Road. What happened? What happened in The Road? Oh, you can go and look at all the theories. Everybody's got a theory. Well, because of this scene and that scene, it was a solar flare that caused drastic climate change. But what was the disaster that the apocalypse in The Road? What was the apocalypse in the Book of Eli? It was something bad. And that's like this. At least you know that in this, it was like our own government decided to reset the country by wiping us all out with a poison called the Black Poison that only left a small percentage of the population alive. It didn't work out well for them if they wanted control. I hope you Republicans are listening to that. It ain't gonna work. But, yeah. So, The Domestics, 2018. If you haven't seen it, you really should. I will see you in the next one. Love you, miss you. Bye-bye. Always remember, never forget, you're a very, very special person. And I will see you in the next one. Keep rocking very, very hard. And keep screaming, but only when appropriate. And yeah. Bye-bye.